So the NFL season is almost at its halfway point, which means a lot of teams are really looking forward to the draft, like the Carolina Panthers, New York Giants, Arizona Cardinals, hell, even teams like the Commanders and the Vikings, now with Kirk Cousins out, are watching college football, wondering who their team is going to draft. But the problem is, you're not all that familiar with college football yet, because draft season is not upon us. Well, fear not. I am here to give you the lowdown on pretty much the basics you need to know about this upcoming 2024 NFL draft class. For every position, I'm going to give it a grade on a scale from 1 to 5 on how strong it is compared to other draft classes in recent memory. I'm going to overview some of the top prospects and some of the guys I really like, just so you know who to look out for. Starting off with the quarterbacks, the top two guys you're going to hear about the most during draft season are Drake May and Caleb Williams, and they both absolutely deserve it. Both of them are going to go top 2, and they are some of the best draft prospects we've seen at quarterback in a couple of years. Both would have gone first overall last year to the Panthers, and both are different but equally good. They just have different skill sets. The best way I've heard it explained is Caleb Williams is better out of structure, Drake May is better in structure, but nonetheless, two very, very good quarterbacks. There are a lot of other guys you're going to hear buzz around, guys like Michael Penix Jr., Bo Nix, J.J. McCarthy, and Shedeur Sanders. I just don't know if they're all first-round talents. Bo Nix is the most pro-ready, but he is really old. He, I believe, has started the most games at quarterback in college football ever, so teams are worried about him being able to develop beyond his college skill set. Michael Penix Jr. is immaculate at throwing the deep ball, and he has a lot of arm strength, but he does throw with his left hand, and you worry about the accuracy on some of the shorter and medium range balls. J.J. McCarthy, there's a lot of question marks around him just because the Michigan offense is very simplified and kind of easy to run. And Shedeur Sanders, there are, again, a ton of question marks around him. He's facing pressure constantly this season, so NFL teams don't really know what he looks like in structure, throwing deeper and more intermediate passes. Overall, I'd give this QB class a 4 out of 5 on strength. It does have two generational prospects at the top, but everyone else behind them does have fairly respectable and reasonable question marks around them. Running back is one of the harder positions to scout coming out of college just because you don't know how much of their production and skill set is being enhanced by a very good offensive line. But I don't have this question about Blake Corum, who is, in my opinion, the RB1 out of this class. He's got great contact balance. He can run through guys, and he's just an overall package as he can receive out of the backfield as well. Another guy who is on his level, though, is Jonathan Brooks out of Texas. Super fast, super agile. He's going to be able to juke some guys out in the open field. Plus receiving upside, too. Not to mention Travion Henderson out of Ohio State is a guy I really like. But overall, outside of those guys, there's no one I really love coming out of this draft class. I'm sure somebody's going to emerge out of the 5th round and end up being very solid for an NFL team. But I'm giving this class a 2 out of 5. Moving on to the receivers, I'm going to dedicate an entire section just to Marvin Harrison Jr. I'll go ahead and say it. He is the best receiving prospect we've seen perhaps in my lifetime. Certainly better than Jamar Chase, better than Justin Jefferson, better than all of the hyped up guys you can think of that you can remember in recent draft classes. Marvin Harrison Jr. is a better prospect. He does things I've never seen any college player do. Route running's elite, hands are elite. Contested catch even is elite. He learned from the best, his father Marvin Harrison, and he's going to go top 5 in this class. Outside of Marvin Harrison Jr., though, it is still a very deep wide receiver class. My wide receiver 2 is Malik Nabers out of LSU, followed very, very closely by Keon Coleman out of Florida State. Now, these guys have two very different skill sets, but I would put them on the same level for sure. Malik Nabers is much more of an agile, yards after the catch, going to create separation guy, while Keon Coleman is basically, I'm going to go up and I'm going to catch this ball on your head, and there's nothing you can do about it. Both have places in the NFL, but I value Malik Nabers' skill set a little bit more. Romeo Dunze is also a guy I have my eye on right now. He is a premier deep ball threat for Michael Penix Jr., who loves throwing it deep. Along with him, here's a short list of other guys you should familiarize yourself with that I don't have time to cover in this video, or else it would be 40 minutes long. Emeka Egbuka, Xavier Legette, Xavier Worthy, Johnny Wilson, Malachi Corley, and Jalen Polk. Overall, this is a very strong, very deep wide receiver class, one of the better we've seen in a long time, and I'm not sure if this is biased because last year's class was so bad, but I'm giving this a class strength of 5 out of 5. For tight ends, there's really one name you need to know, and that is Brock Bowers. He is one of the best tight end prospects we've seen in a long time. Maybe better than Kyle Pitts. You can have that debate. I don't really want to, but he is going to be the premier guy. It's not a class that you saw last year where there's a lot of guys who are adding value. Sam Laporta, chief amongst them, obviously, but Bowers is the premier guy, and there is a massive gap between everyone else. Overall, I'm giving this class a 2 out of 5 for tight ends. For this offensive line class, the top two are offensive tackles. Olu Fashanu out of Penn State, who is great in the pass protection, anchors really well, uses his hands well, and very agile for somebody as big as he is. And Joe Alt out of Notre Dame, who is just a giant. He's like 7 feet tall. Don't fact check that. He's big, he's strong, he's not going to be pushed around even by NFL guys. These are the top two guys you're going to look at to see go top 10. Some other notable guys are Jordan Morgan out of Arizona, who you're watching right now, Tylese Fuaga out of Oregon State, apologies if I did not pronounce that correctly, and Graham Barton out of Duke. All of these guys are tackles, and it is a very, very bad year to need an interior offensive lineman. The highest I graded was, I believe, Cedric Van Pran out of Georgia, who I had like a 3rd round grade on. He's going to end up getting overdrafted because center is a more valuable position than a lot of fans realize. But it's not looking good for the interior offensive line, and that's going to drag this class's grade all the way down to a 2. Finally, moving over to the defense, this is my favorite position to scout, the edge rushing position, and to me there's a pretty clear-cut top 3, Laiatu Latu, Chop Robinson, and Gerard Verse. That's the order I have them in. Laiatu Latu is crazy. He had to medically retire, transferred to UCLA, and is now balling. He won't be drafted as high as his talent and his skill set would lead you to believe because of a weird injury history, but I still think he's going to perform very well at the NFL level. Chop Robinson's a dog out of Penn State. My favorite thing about him is he doesn't wear any accessories. You'll barely ever see him with gloves. No arm sleeve, no tape, no nothing. It's awesome. And Gerard Verse out of Florida State does have his highs. He came into the year as the expected number 1 edge, but he's fallen off a little after a couple rough games. Although if you do want to see him perform really well, watch him against LSU. He tears that offensive line up. Just a tier below them are guys like JT Tuimoloau, Dallas Turner out of Alabama, and Braylon Trice, who you're watching right now, out of Washington. These guys are still very talented, and I project a guy like Braylon Trice to go late 1st round, and the other two to go 2nd or 3rd round, but I do think this is a very solid edge class. I'm going to be watching as many guys as I possibly can out of it, and I'm going to go ahead and give this class a 4 out of 5. This interior defensive line class is actually a lot better than what we've seen in recent years. Guys like Jazar Newton out of Illinois, who you're watching right now, Leonard Taylor Jr. out of Miami, and Chris Jenkins out of Michigan make it a very strong and very versatile class. The only criticism with the top guy I have, Jazar Newton, is he's a little small, but when you see him, he plays very much above his size, and he plays big, and there are certainly spots for him on an NFL defense. I see him as a 1st rounder pretty comfortably. We've also got 2 future members of the NFL All-Name team in Cincinnati's Dante Corleone and LSU's Mekhi Wingo. As for the linebackers, turn your volume down because I don't know how loud this is going to be, but suck. They're terrible, dude. I feel like they're terrible every year. I'm sure there will be another, probably not, but there will be another late round draft guy like Ivan Pace who went undrafted and is producing now. But as of right now, the only 2 guys I really enjoyed watching were Barrett Carter and Jeremiah Trotter, both ironically from Clemson. I give this a 1 out of 5. This cornerback class is elite. It's a great year to need a DB. The consensus top 3 you're going to see around the nation are Kool-Aid McKinstry, Kalen King, and Cooper DeJean, a white cornerback out of Iowa. But I have another name I'd like to submit. Nate Wiggins, I think, is such a dog. You're watching his high school highlight tape right now because they don't make They don't make mixtapes of DBs like they used to, you know. Richard Sherman mixtapes back in the day went crazy, but they just don't do them anymore, right? But Nate Wiggins, I think, is such a dog. Those are, to me, the top four. I believe Nate Wiggins belongs in the conversation with the top three, but McKinstry, DeJean, and King are going to be the three you hear the most about. But if you want to sound cool at parties, mention Nate Wiggins. Other later round guys, like day 2, early day 3 guys, such as TJ Tampa, Josh Newton out of TCU, and Denzel Burke, really solidify this CB class as, to me, a 5 out of 5 on strength. This is a safety class a lot better than we're accustomed to seeing, right? The last 2 years, we've had 2 big guys at the top and then a huge gap before we get to everyone else. This year, there is a big dog. Cameron Kitchens out of Miami, I believe, is comfortably the best out of this class, but there are also some very solid day 2, early day 3 guys in Tyler Nubin, Rod Moore, even Kalen Bullock, who I'm not a huge fan of. I could see NFL teams liking very much. If your team has these late day 2, early day 3 picks and wants to shore up depth in that safety room, this could very well be the class to do it. If you made it all the way to the end of the video, thank you so much for sticking around and watching the whole thing. It really does mean a lot. Subscribe, please, to the Own Accord podcast on YouTube, at Own Accord Pod on Twitter, at Own Accord Pod on TikTok. If you search up Own Accord Pod on a social media, odds are you're going to find us and you're going to like a lot of the content that we make. I also make basketball content. My co-host Tyler loves baseball and football content just like I do. We've got something for every sort of fan around, right? But I'm not going to waste any more of your time. That's all for me today, and I'm going to catch you.